You probably walk past a killer today. Most people do. They don't have horns, and they don't growl. They smile, they wave, and then they wait. Today, we look at the 8 names that proved the scariest thing on Earth is us. Welcome to the archive. The Phantom, Jack the Ripper, London, 1888. In the smog-choked alleys of Whitechapel, a ghost began to harvest the living. Known only as Jack, he targeted the unfortunates of the slums. He didn't just kill. He performed ritualistic dissections in the pitch black of night. His canonical 5 victims were left with surgical incisions so precise they suggested a master's hand, a doctor, or a butcher. He famously sent a letter from hell along with half a human kidney to the police, mocking their failure. To this day, his identity remains a blood-stained riddle. He proved that some monsters never get caught. They simply vanish into the fog. The Cipher, the Zodiac Killer. While the world watched the moon landing in 1969, a predator was claiming the roads of Northern California. The Zodiac was a narcissist who thrived on terror, hunting young couples in secluded lovers' lanes. He once even wore a medieval executioner's hood during a brutal daylight stabbing at Lake Berryessa. He sent cryptic ciphers to newspapers, threatening to blow up a school bus if his codes weren't published. Though he claimed 37 victims, only 5 are confirmed. One code took 1 years to crack, but his name remains a mystery. He turned murder into a public game, and for all we know, he's still winning. The Architect, H. Holmes. During the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, Herman Mudgett, better known as H. Holmes built a monument to death. His murder castle was an architectural nightmare, filled with trapdoors, stairways to nowhere, and soundproof gas chambers. He lured tourists into his labyrinth, only to suffocate them or drop them into acid vats in the basement. A master of insurance fraud, he often cleaned the skeletons of his victims to sell them to medical schools. Holmes didn't just have a dark heart. He had a business model for murder. He was America's first modern monster, building a factory where the only product was death. The Cannibal, Jeffrey Dahmer. Apartment, 213 inches. Milwaukee was a shrine to the impossible. Jeffrey Dahmer was a man who couldn't handle abandonment, so he decided to keep his victims forever. Between 1978 and 1991, he murdered 17 men, dismembering them and preserving their skulls in his fridge, and bones in blue barrels of acid. He even attempted to create living dolls by drilling holes into their heads and injecting acid, seeking a companion who could never leave. When police finally entered his home, they found a gallery of horrors in his Polaroid drawer. Dahmer's case stands as a chilling study of how deep the human psyche can sink into the abyss of depravity. The Killer Clown, John Wayne Gacy. In the suburbs of Chicago, John Wayne Gacy was a pillar of the community, a political precinct captain who often dressed as Pogo the Clown for charity. But beneath the face paint was a predatory void. Gacy used the handcuff trick to trap young men, promising them work before strangling them in his home. He managed to hide the stench of death by claiming it was a sewage problem. When investigators finally dug up his house, they found 26 bodies crammed into the crawl space under his feet. He slept every night on a mass grave, hidden by a painted-on smile. The Ghoul, Ed Gein. Ed Gein didn't need a high body count to become a legend. In the isolated town of Plainfield, Gein turned a farmhouse into a museum of the macabre. Driven by a pathological obsession with his dead mother, he robbed graves to harvest skin and bone. Police found bowls made from skulls, chairs upholstered with human skin, and a woman's suit Gein had crafted to literally step into his mother's identity. His crimes were so visceral, they inspired Psycho, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the Silence of the Lambs. Gein proved that the most quiet, lonely house on the hill could be the most dangerous place on earth. The narcissist, Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was the ultimate predator because he looked exactly like the man of your dreams. He was law school bound, politically active, and undeniably charming. He used that charm as a snare, faking injuries with crutches to lure women into his tan Volkswagen Beetle. Across 7 states, he murdered at least 30 women, often returning to the dump sites to groom the remains in a sick display of necrophilia. In court, he represented himself, treating the trial like a talk show. Bundy's legacy is a warning. Evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes, it looks like someone you'd fall in love with. The Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. In the blistering summer of 1985, Los Angeles was paralyzed by a man who claimed to be a soldier of Satan. Richard Ramirez was a chaotic predator. He had no type and no specific method. He entered homes through unlocked windows, shooting, stabbing, or beating whoever was inside. He left pentagrams drawn in blood on the walls and forced survivors to swear to Satan. He thrived on the summer of fear, treating his trial like a rock concert. When he was finally caught by an angry mob, he showed no remorse. Ramirez reminded us that sometimes there is no logic to evil, only the raw desire to destroy. The archive is closing for now, but the stories, they never truly end. We study these monsters so we can recognize the warning signs, but the most terrifying truth is this: evil doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just waits for the right moment of silence.